Is going on, folks? Will Turbot, aka the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, for Auditing America, Demand the Truth, and Fake Mike Real News. I caught it. You know it's going to be a good one here. And today is one of those days that makes the activism worth it. This is something, I mean, honestly, I'm going to fanboy a little bit here, but I remember the first time Fritz agreed to do Fritz Springmeier agreed to do a interview with me. I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, damn, Fritz Springmeier is really going to be on my show tomorrow. I felt like Santa Claus was coming. I was in my bed. I was like, oh man, Fritz is. So guys, share this video. This is an important video. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you all for the donations. We'll wait a minute to let you guys get in here. Share the video with everybody. I'll give you a little bit about Fritz from my perspective. I'll let Fritz talk about himself because there's new people out here, new generation. We're always reaching new people. And we're going to start off with whatever Fritz wants to get into. But smack the like real quick for us. Hit subscribe if you already haven't. And this is one of the fun days for me because we're here with the legend, Fritz Springmeier. People talk about, oh, the Illuminati. Well, Fritz Springmeier wrote a book. He wrote the book, The 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. He wrote several other books. We'll be talking about those later, and I hope you guys purchase and help. But yeah, Fritz Springmeier is a legend. He's been out there exposing this shadowy elite group for decades, before some of us were even born. So Fritz, welcome to Auditing America. Thank you again for doing this. If you want to give people a background about yourself, that's fine. However you want to do it, but we have important topics that we want to get into as well. And I'm going to let you take the floor, and I'm going to shut up here.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and hello to all your listeners. And I wrote a 7-book series on the Illuminati, explaining the who, what, where, when, how, everything. And the who part of it is the bloodlines of the Illuminati. And you can go on to my website, pintracks.com, which was taken down a few months ago, but is back up. It's a little ragged, but it's back up. And if you do order any of my books, though, just realize that it takes forever for me to fill orders. There's a number of reasons why. The little company that's making my books, which is very loyal to me, but they're not able to keep up with the demand. So you have to have patience. But you can go to Pintracks, PNTRACKS.com, and you can get more information. Meanwhile, what I want to use this time for is because I know the Illuminati so well. I know their plans, the way they operate. I want to use that as a springboard to talk about what's happening over in Ukraine, Putin's Russian invasion of the Ukraine. I think that having my input on that will be worthwhile to people. You have to understand, like Will was wanting me to explain how in the past the cabal, or whatever you want to call it, I just use the term Illuminati, which is the term they use for themselves. That's their internal word. They also have a few other internal names that they give themselves. Anyway, this group of world leaders, they have financed and created wars in the past. And Ralph Epperson wrote a book, The Unseen Hand. And I recommend people get that book if you don't understand how wars have been created. If you don't understand how World War I was created, you don't understand how World War II was created, you need to do that. And so what I'm here to try to do is to give you a little bit of insight how this war that we're looking at right now was created. You know, the script behind it, once I tell you the script, it'll make a lot of sense. So to bring Hitler to power, there was something called pan-Germanism. Pan-Germanism was the belief that all the German-speaking areas should be unified and brought together. And so you see Prussia conquering the other German states. And in 1871, they conquered enough of them. They couldn't conquer Austria, but they conquered like Bavaria and some others, and they created the German Empire. And then they get into World War One, and then at the end of World War One, there's this diktat which comes down really hard on Germany, and they strip Germany of what today would be 19 colonial areas plus 10 actual parts of Germany itself, like the Saarland was taken away, and Silesia was taken away. Different parts of Germany, Alsace-Lorraine, these parts, one part was given to Belgium, one Sudetenland given to the Czechoslovakia, which was a newly created republic. They stripped Germany of all of its colonies and a lot of its different lands. And then the next thing you see happen is Germany goes into this incredible hyperinflation, and there's starvation. The Germans are starving. And then this is the context that they bring Hitler in. Okay, well, check this out. Listen to what we've got. We've got pan-Russianism, and then we've got the collapse of the Soviet Empire. They lose the Cold War, right? And when they lose the Cold War, 6 of their Eastern European countries that are basically like colonies are stripped from them. Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary. These Eastern European countries are stripped from the Soviet Union, and then 12 of the autonomous republics of the Soviet Union, like Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, Estonia, Ukraine, they're stripped from the Soviet Union, right? Same thing has happened with Germany. Then they, Yeltsin, under the orders of the IMF, and the IMF, by the way, are all Illuminati. The people running it are Illuminati members, and they told Yeltsin, who they told me themselves when I interacted with them, that they put Yeltsin into place. They gave Yeltsin orders to give shock therapy to the Russian economy, which then sent them into hyperinflation, created starvation, which they laughed. The Illuminati kingpins laughed to me. They thought it was funny that there was starvation in Russia because they were killing off mostly the elderly. They wanted to get rid of that generation, so they thought it was funny. And then that's what led to Putin. Okay. Now, Hitler had his book, Mein Kampf. How many people are aware that Putin's got his own Mein Kampf? It's a book entitled The Third Empire, Russia as It Ought to Be, by Mikhail Yurev. And check this out. It's so parallel to Hitler, it isn't even funny. You've heard of the Third Reich, right? Well, they call this new Russian Empire the Third Empire. Same kind of language. And there's so many parallels. And then Putin, he's called Vocht. Okay, what does Vocht mean in Russian? It means the leader. What was Hitler's name? Der Führer, which means the leader, you know? And so Putin, over the years, he's created this aura of being like a Hitler type figure. He pushes people around, he threatens them. And this book, The Third Empire, Russia as It Ought to Be, is a very popular book in the Kremlin. This is their blueprint. How many people know that they're working off of this blueprint? And this blueprint is first they invaded Georgia in 2008. That was straight from this book. Then they took over the Crimea. They're just following the script of this book. And then after they took the Crimea pretty well bloodlessly, because the Ukraine didn't fight back. In fact, some Ukrainian units mutinied and went over to the Russians. They took over the Crimea and annexed it into Russia. Then the next thing you know is they attack Luhansk and Donetsk, and they take parts of these Donbass regions, and they set up these people's republics in these areas, which they then used as a springboard for this 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so similar script as what, and why are they using the same script? Because it was successful to get the world into World War back in the late 30s, in the 1930s, 1931, September 1st. And so I've been watching NATO, I've been watching Russia, and they're both being provocative to each other. I mean, what happened yesterday? You know, Russia targets a shopping mall that's got 1,000 people in it, and 400 people are missing, or something like that. 18 are for sure dead. They target, and you can say, well, maybe the missile didn't land properly. Well, okay, check this out, people. Repeatedly, this is not something that's just one time happened. This has happened hundreds of times, that these expensive $1 or $2 million missiles hit a civilian target in obviously civilian areas. Come on, the Russians are just wasting billions of dollars with these high tech expensive.
And let me jump in here real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Fritz, because you're on a roll. But this is actually something that I saw some of the truth community fall for. They said, "Oh, you know, Putin, he's standing up against the West. He's kicking out the oligarchs, but he didn't kick out the Rothschilds. Notice he didn't kick out the Rothschilds, which is weird." And they said, "Oh, hey Fritz, they would say to you right now, hey Fritz, you're crazy because Putin is the savior, and he's only making precise strikes to get these biological weapons factories going on." And it's crazy that they think this. And now we're here so many months later, and it would be one, if it was one time, like you said, it could be an accident. But it's very also sad that some of the so-called truth community is falling for Putin, like he's really against the Rothschilds or the bloodlines. I just find that funny. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll get to that. A good point. Well, there's different ways to look at this whole mess. And one way is to look at the Ukraine as this small, innocent country that's being bullied by Putin and the Russian bear. It was minding its own business, and it gets invaded. And so a lot of people feel sorry and are on the side of Ukraine. Then there's another way to look at it, and that's Putin standing up to the cabal. He's standing up to the banksters, and he's taking down these biolabs, and he's trying to stand up. Well, see, do you see the script here? What did Hitler say that he was against? He was against the international banksters. If you go back and look, he was saying the same thing.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at the actual record, then you're going to go, nah, there's something wrong here. I mean, who financed Hitler? You go back and look at it. Some of the Wall Street banksters financed Hitler, including the Bush family, you know. So what was going on here, people? So what's going on with Putin? So Putin has a central bank. Putin has the same kind of institution like our CFR, and there's a whole string of, and I did an article where I went through all of these decision-making institutions in Russia, and they are the mirror image of what we have in the United States, just like the Council of Foreign Relations. In fact, one of his oligarchs sits on our Council of Foreign Relations. So there's a gal named Elvira Nabiuliram. I'm not good with Nebulina. I'm not good with Slavic names, so the people have to bear with me. But anyway, she's the central banker for Russia. And let me tell you, this gal went to Yale. Yale, the elite paid for her to get advanced global leadership training at Yale. She is just one with the cabal, and she's the one who's running the Russian central bank. Putin himself is a member of the Lodge system. There's 36 top Illuminati lodges. He is a lodge member with Kissinger. He is a friend of Kissinger. He's been to Kissinger's house. This Putin was the head of the KGB. Come on, people. What's the KGB all about? if you were a Christian and you've been following what happened in the Soviet Union, they were torturing Christians. This is a guy who's insensitive to Christians being tortured to death. But now that he's left the KGB, supposedly he's reformed, he's a nice guy. He
just like George Bush when he left the CIA. As soon as he left the CIA, he became a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. Now he's our president. Well, what's the CIA all about? Go in and look at the history of the CIA. Look at the history of the KGB. And this is the man who was running it. There was a man named Roman Abramovich, right? He's one of the oligarchs. There's like 36 oligarchs that Putin has. These are his cronies, his criminal cronies, and they have been looting Russia for the last 3 decades. And Roman Abramovich was one of the oligarchs under Yeltsin. He was the oligarch that said, let's put Putin into power. Let's replace Yeltsin with Putin. And Roman Abramovich is a dual Israeli citizen. He's Jewish. And at least 10 of these 36 oligarchs of Putin's are Jewish billionaires. And several of them are also dual citizens with Israel. In fact, check this out, people. There's a lot that doesn't even make sense here. Because if you understand what's been going on in Russia, Russia has a whole number of neo-Nazi parties, and one of Putin's good friends who died recently, Vladimir Zhiranovich, I can't pronounce the last name, Zhiranovsky, that's something approximately it. Anyway, he died in April. He took 8 of the COVID shots. So I kind of suspect that all these COVID shots might have been harmful. I don't know. For whatever reason, he died in April, and he was the leader of the neo-Nazi Liberal Democratic Party, and Putin was friends with him. Putin went to his funeral. And so the point is if you went to Russia, you would see plenty of Russians sporting swastika tattoos. So the idea that Ukraine is this neo-Nazi state, yeah, sure, Ukraine has some neo-Nazis, but Russia is this anti-Nazi place where it's pristinely clean of neo-Nazis, is just not reality. So if Putin was really against neo-Nazis, why isn't he cleaning up Russia of its neo-Nazis? I mean, this is not a reason to get into a major war like Putin's doing. I'm just saying, yeah, Ukraine does have neo-Nazis. And who financed these neo-Nazis? It was a Jewish oligarch who's a Ukrainian, a dual citizen of Israel and Ukraine. A Jewish oligarch billionaire has been financing, and this financing is what created the Azov battalion, which was a National Guard battalion, and then it became a Ukrainian, actually integrated into the Ukrainian army. But there's a lot of things that ought to raise people's eyebrows. Things are not, if I can use a Jewish term, kosher here. Things are really, it smells. It smells real bad if you start looking just below the surface. Putin is invading Ukraine not to help these people in these breakaway republics, not to do away with a few neo-Nazis, not to some of these others. He's actually set out to conquer Ukraine, and it didn't go well. Well, why didn't it go well for him? Well, let's look at that. So if you understand how the Russian military is structured, there's two types of soldiers. There's the professional contract soldier, and then there's the conscripts and the reservists. They used to take a conscript and have them in the military for 2 years. I saw one thing that recently that said 1 year. I don't know if it's 1 year or 2 years that the conscripts serve. But then what they would do in the Soviet Union is after this conscript got this basic training, they would take the equipment that that conscript had trained on, they would store it, like the tanks, they would just stick them in some tank park. They would mothball the AK-47s or whatever that they trained on. And then if there was ever a war, these reservists would be called up and they would pad out the professional troops. So the Russian units only are at 70% manpower. Well, when you have a conscript, what are you going to train them in? You're going to train them in a basic job like an infantryman job. You're not going to train them on a high-tech guided missile job or something like that. So the majority of the infantryman positions in these Russian battalions were to come from conscripts. And the way it was supposed to work was when a war broke out, you called up all your reservists, you took in your conscripts, and you padded out your units to full size from 70% to 100%. Then you sent them into combat. But why hasn't Putin done that? Why hasn't he been using the conscripts? Why hasn't he called up the reservists? Well, it all goes back to the same problem that United States had in the Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, first, we sent in our super warriors, our Green Berets. They went into these villages. They were to train the villagers. This Green Beret goes in to a village, and he's to make them to where they can defend themselves against these North Vietnamese guerrillas. Well, that didn't work out, so then we sent in our Marines. But the military realized with all their commitments worldwide and what was going on in Vietnam, we needed a draft. Well, what happened when they had a draft? It was very unpopular because they're sending American boys over to Vietnam, American boys who don't even know where Vietnam is or don't even care about Vietnam are being asked to sacrifice their lives for Vietnam. It didn't work. It created a lot of animosity. Same thing happened for Russia when they drafted people for the Afghan invasion. So Putin's trying to keep this war popular. So he's told the Russian people, I'm not going to send in conscripts for this special military operation. Well, it is a special military operation. It's not a war. He hasn't put the Russian military on war basis. Now, some of his generals or colonels or whoever they were, they have, according to the Russian media anyway, they disobeyed orders and they went ahead and sent some conscripts in, but they weren't supposed to. And they have tried to leave the reservists and the conscripts alone. But now they're short. Now they're hurting. Now they're beginning to call up reservists. But the reports is the majority of reservists are hiding. They don't want to be sent to this war, because even though the Russian media is heavily censored, the people realize that it's a death trap. Well, what happened is when the Russian military invaded Ukraine, their invading forces went in without the proper amount of infantry, and they were sitting ducks for ambushes by the Ukrainians. So their tank columns, which should have been protected by infantry and build up areas, weren't. So they got really badly handled. And so then they pulled out, they retreated, and they decided, we've got to do something Putin doesn't want to just lose. So he's like, we got to revise our strategy, what we're doing here. So it ended up in the final phase of things. They decided to focus on the Donbass. And taking the rest of these two breakaway republics under Russian military control. So that's what's been going on. It's been a disaster militarily for Russia, but they have persevered. Their units are being wiped out is not an exaggeration. These units are being they're just being wasted in combat, and the two breakaway republics, because they needed infantry under Putin's guidance, these two breakaway republics, Luhansk and Donetsk, they made a draft of everybody from 18 to 65. It didn't matter what your medical shape was, what your talents or abilities were. Everybody, you could be old and decrepit, you could have medical problems. They drafted you and they put you into these militias. And then the Russians have been using these militias for cannon fodder. So when Putin says that he's going in to protect these breakaway republics populations, that's totally bogus. He's using all their males as cannon fodder. And like when the Russian military wants to know where the Ukrainian positions are, they send these militiamen in who then get killed and show the Russian professionals where the Ukrainian positions are so they can take them out with their artillery. But that's why they've been having to use a lot of artillery. They don't have the infantry on the ground to properly seize and control ground. So they're just destroying everything with heavy amounts of artillery. And their artillery is, not only do they have many more times the Ukrainian artillery, but their artillery has longer range. So that's why it's been proceeding the way it has been. But they can't sustain these kind of casualties. The best reports, these are reports that are made from actual pictures on the ground of destroyed Russian helicopters. There's been about 200 Russian military helicopters taken out. Well, think about that. That's probably represents 200 Russian pilots, very skilled, trained pilots. To fly a helicopter takes a lot of intensive training. It's not easy to replace a helicopter pilot. These are the kind of losses that Russia is losing. And how are they going to replace these trained troops? So at some point, we're going to have to see a lull in the fighting where Russia regroups, reinforces, reestablishes their units. And that lull, I think, is going to be to Ukraine's advantage, because the Ukraine's getting high-tech, long-range artillery and missiles from NATO. So the point is, again, Putin says he launched this war to demilitarize Ukraine. Well, think about it, people. Has he demilitarized the Ukraine, or has he taken it from being a weak nation to kind of, you might say, one of the world's strongest militaries? They're getting all the best equipment that NATO can give them. So his reasons for this war don't hold water. Who is actually winning? Who's getting advantage? Who's coming out ahead in this war? Klaus Schwab and his Illuminati compatriot. By the way, Putin's a friend of Klaus Schwab. They are the ones that coming out ahead. On this great reset, what do they want? They want world starvation so that they can take over the world's food supply. They want the economies to collapse so they can bring in their digital money. All the things that are this war is creating, the fallout from this war is going to help the Illuminati's agenda. That's who's winning in this war is the World Economic Forum and the Illuminati. By the way, Klaus Schwab is an Illuminati member, and the head of the Illuminati's been going to these World Economic Forum meetings for a long time. This is all, World Bank, IMF, World Economic Forum. You talk about these people, we're talking about Illuminati.
Yeah.
So that was my major point here, is I wanted to get across that things are fishy. Both our media and Putin's media are doing snow jobs. We're getting a lot of propaganda, and this whole thing is a disaster for the world.
Yeah, and as you've pointed out in your books, and I'll put it up again on screen here on pentrax.com, and I want to talk to you, maybe talk to you after this stream for a minute or two, because the unfortunate thing is, I mean, I'll just talk to you right now, and you can let me know if you have to go at any time. If you got time for a few questions, that's fine. If not, if you have to go, that's fine too. But when you look up Fritz Springmeier, they got your Instagram profile, which is not you, somebody pretending to be you. You got your Facebook profile, which has been hacked now. You've got you try to look up Fritz Springmeier on YouTube, you're gonna find not Fritz Springmeier. You're gonna scroll down a little bit. You might find in your website. I would love to help you out with that. Like absolutely free, revamp your website. So I'll just so that's one load off your back, we can revitalize it. I got people that we do that type of stuff, because it's really a shame to see other people like, I mean, there was one YouTube channel with your work, and they were making money off that. They had hundreds of thousands, millions of views on that channel, and you should be in a position where you're just relaxing right now, Fritz. So do you have time for a few questions, or do you have to go?
No, I have the evening off. I got it set aside for you. So yeah, you're
welcome.
That
is one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life. So I'm going to go through my questions here. I'll go through a few, and then we'll get to, if Fritz has time, save your questions for the end. Stay tuned, and we'll get to your questions too. Please share this video with everybody. This is important work. This is the reason that we go out and do some of the other videos, so that we can get eyeballs on this type of video. And Mr. America Enrique, who you met when we were out in Kansas, he honestly says, oh man, anytime you want to interview Fritz, let's do it, because people love Fritz. We get a lot of views on the Fritz Springmeier videos, but there's still a lot of people that don't know who Fritz Springmeier is. So do your part, share the video, like pentrax.com. The links in the description will be updated soon. You can purchase Fritz's book there. Please do. Please do. Fritz should, not only are you helping Fritz, but you're getting the dopest information, and you can't barely get it on you really can't get it on YouTube. Anyways, so we've been talking about Russia for a while, but let's talk about China, right? Because you've written extensively in your past about China, and you're mentioning how Putin's like this with Netanyahu, but we also have the China really expanding now. They have the Belt and Road project going on, where they're connecting with Israel and stuff. I was wondering if you could just talk about China, the Belt and Road, and where you maybe see that China's place in the future and all this, if you could speak to that.
Yeah. Well, China and Russia are working together, and they're allies. And so China is going right now. Russia looks like our main enemy. NATO has just recently said that they're going to put 4 battle groups on the border of Russia, which is, these battle groups are going to consist of 300,000 troops. So the focus is on Russia, but China is just as dangerous, and China is not the basket case that Russia is. Russia's an economic basket case, and now we've seen that their military that they were trying to build up the last few years, their criminal oligarchs were siphoning off billions of dollars that were supposed to go to modernizing the military. They siphoned that off for their yachts and their women and so forth. So China has not been so corrupt. I mean, their leadership is corrupt, don't get me wrong, but in many ways they've been moving forward in The Chinese people are very intelligent people, and their leadership are communists, and the Illuminati is backing them. So where the Illuminati is coming across as being against Putin, the Illuminati are the ones who they came and backed Mao and gave financing to Red China, provided equipment, and built China up. So they are using China as the anvil to destroy America. So if you look at this anvil, and here's America, and they're going to pound America and use China to destroy us. And China has come in and totally wreaked havoc. Like, I live in Southwest Kansas. They, along with Bill Gates, are buying up large quantities of farmland. Now, why are the Chinese buying large quantities of American farmland? You know, yeah, so they are a very dangerous thing, and their economy is quite fragile. They have been playing a lot of tricks to try to keep their economy looking great. So what happens when your economy starts falling apart? Well, why did Hitler have to go to war when he did in 1939? Well, what a lot of people don't realize is economically he had to. Germany had to invade other countries because they had to loot other countries. Like when Germany invaded Poland and Czechoslovakia and Austria, what do you think they went for immediately? They grabbed the gold of those nations, and that helped the German gold reserve. They also took over their factories. So the Skoda works that built tanks was taken over by in Czechoslovakia, was taken over by the Germans and used to produce tanks. The 38T and the 35T Czech tanks were added to the German arsenal, which greatly helped the Panzer units when they did blitzkrieg against Poland and France. So there was an economic reason. China is going to have an economic reason to move against the United States. So we're in very dangerous times. I don't want to predict that we're going to get into a world war, but I've been trying to track things and see where things are going. And I seriously think that there is a serious chance for a major world war coming out of all of it. And if that happens, Red China could move very quickly against a lot of things. And so we're in some very dangerous times. If you look at biblical prophecy, there's a king of the north and a king of the east, and people have interpreted these as a king of the north as being Russia and Putin, king of the east as being China. That may or may not end up the case. I can tell you this, I do know as a fact that the Illuminati, in all their arrogance and pride, are wanting to recreate the apocalyptic Armageddon script in Revelation. And so I wouldn't put it past them to create a world war which matches some of the apocalyptic scriptures that we can read about. And so we're in some I don't know, interesting times.
Yeah,
More than interesting times.
and you know, Fritz, it's crazy because I don't want to say the word, but the cootie shot, the cooties pandemic. I mean, this is stuff that you predicted. Honestly, like the stuff that you were talking about back in the day, I thought would come true down the line. I thought I would be an older man at the time and I wouldn't have to deal with it too much, right? But after we saw the events of the last couple years, I mean, things were already bad enough as it is. We're deep in this. We're already in this, and as Fritz is telling you right now, the Illuminati, and yes, the Illuminati was an actual historical organization, right? The Bavarian Illuminati, but also that's something that's documented. But also, as Fritz will tell you, that is something you can look up and is well documented. That's not a conspiracy at all. Now, the Illuminati, as Fritz documents incessantly in his books on pentracks.com, that's pentracks.com, pentracks.com. Go over there, find that. Find the website, pentracks.com, share with everybody, and purchase his books. But he documents the Illuminati goes back further than this. And something that I like to bring up, too, is the fact that George Washington was, and this is located in the Library of Congress, his writings, he was corresponding with one of his friends, and his friend was like, and I'm paraphrasing from modern parlance, he was like, yo, dog, you heard about this Illuminati jumping in the Freemasons? And he was like, doubt it not. No, none is more aware of their presence. And they're talking about the Illuminati in 1798, and supposedly the Bavarian Illuminati was disbanded in 1793. So make of that what you will. And we do have these bloodlines, whatever term you want to put on these people. As you're talking about, we got the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg Group, we got the Royal Family of England, Netherlands, you got Klaus Schwab, you got all the Council on Foreign Relations, all these people, regardless of whatever you want to call them. There is this group out there for sure. So, for anybody that's new, who are the Illuminati? Are there any updates to the bloodlines? If you guys want to know who's in the Illuminati, Fritz actually wrote the book, 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, which you can go get. And I actually believe, I haven't checked out, I listened to an audiobook about 3 months ago, but I believe there's 2 extra families in there too. So it's a very interesting book, and you have to go check it out. But, what...
The title to it that people want to is Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The original title is the one that you're using, but I changed the title very early on to Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Okay, Will?
So yeah, what's up? And Fritz, you're getting a lot of love in these comments, and if you guys stay tuned, we'll definitely get to your questions if Fritz has some time. But what is the Illuminati in modern terms? Have there been updates to these bloodlines? What's their mindset? If you could address that a little bit.
Well, these were powerful families. And if you think back to the powerful families that ruled in ancient times, there was never a point in history where these powerful families said, you know what, we're tired of running the world. We're tired of having serfs and slaves and servants. We're tired of being kings. We're tired of running these different mystery religions and all the rest. There's never been a time in history where they just said, you know what, we're going to step down and let the rabble, common masses run things. Now, we thought that when United States was created, that's what was happening. That's why United States has been held up as something that was revolutionary, was something new. But I go in and show in Bloodlines of the Illuminati that right from the start, a lot of the people that were leaders of our revolution even were Illuminati. And so it wasn't a clean break. Granted, something great happened. And I think that not only was the creation of the United States something that the Illuminati wanted, but it was something that God wanted. Sometimes, actually, I'll go back and give another example. Satan wanted to crucify Christ, but actually Christ volunteered to be crucified because it was part of God's plan. So sometimes God's plans and Satan's plans coincide. I think that pertains to the creation of the United States. I think that there were a lot of great things that happened when the United States was created, but it wasn't a total break with these bloodlines. And you can see if you go in and look at my Bloodlines of the Illuminati book, like I show how 35 presidents are closely related. I have a number of genealogy charts showing how they go back to these powerful bloodlines. And those came out before a lot of other people came out with theirs. So other people kind of copied what I did and then got the credit for it, because mainstream media is going to focus on what some elementary school girl did or something like that. They're not going to focus on give me any publicity. At any rate, you can see it's documented there that these mystery religions continued. The Illuminati's the continuation of
I'm
the
sorry to
mystery.
interrupt you really quick. I just want to give people a background too. I mean, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if for anybody that's unaware, because we have a different cross section of viewers here, and hopefully thanks to Broken Record, Elmer, Mrs. J, Scotty Too Hottie, Jack, that you guys are sharing the video and we got even newer eyeballs on this. A mystery religion. Fritz, why don't you tell people what a mystery religion is? Because you'll do a much better job than I would.
Okay, well, it all goes back to the concept of creating power. So if I say I've got a secret, I've got hidden knowledge, I create an instant power base, because you have to come to me for this hidden wisdom, this hidden knowledge. So that's what they did in these mystery religions, is they said we have hidden knowledge, and thereby they created an instant power base. But you can't give away your hidden knowledge. You can only give it away incrementally to make somebody dependent upon you. If you gave it all away, you would lose your power base. So within Freemasonry, and the first thing you do to become a Freemason is you fill out this form that says you want to be initiated into the mysteries. You go to the best Masonic authors like Manly P. Hall, who is their greatest philosopher, and he will tell you in his Secret Teachings of All Ages that Freemasonry is the continuation of the mystery religions. So you go through a series of degrees to be given a little bit of this mystery, occult mystery knowledge. You know, they're not going to give it to you all at once because they want to make you dependent on their power structure. There's other power structures beside Freemasonry. You know, if you look at the Watchtower Society, which is Jehovah's Witnesses, they say you need to be in touch with God's channel of communication. And they dole out this wisdom in increments by making you do these Watchtower and Awake studies, these book studies. They dole it out that way. So they make you dependent on some power structure. And that's what the mystery religions did, is they were a way for the mystery priests to gain power over people, and they continue to do that. That's what it really is just a way to get power over people.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Fritz, because you give such a detailed answer that I kind of interrupted where you're going. I don't know if you recall where you're going. You're talking about the mystery schools, but I just wanted to make it clear, too, because there's a lot of folks out here that probably have never even heard that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I guess I was asking you was, you know, we have this Illuminati. What's their mindset, and how are they doing right now? Are they doing well? Have there been updates to the family? Sorry.
They're generational Satanists, and in 2003 they passed the leadership to a new generation at Gstaad, Switzerland, is where they passed the leadership on. And at first the new leadership was not in sync with the way the older leadership was, and for different reasons we got a 20, I call it divine intervention. What they had planned, we got 21-year delay on what they have planned. Originally what they did in 2021, they wanted to do in the year 2000. So we got a 21-year break. Not that very many people used it very well, although God did raise up, and there were some tremendous things that happened in those years that God did. So God did use that time period in some very impressive ways. But in general, I would have liked the public to have become more aware than they did, because it wasn't right in their face. Now it's right in people's face. Now they can see it, like what Joe Biden's doing to totally destroy this country, you know. And California, Will, you may have seen this. California passed this bill that if you privately own your semi truck, you can't drive it into California. Well, half of the semi trucks aren't going to be able to come into California. They're intentionally destroying our economy, and they're kind of blaming it on this Ukraine war, but the inflation is not being caused by the Ukrainian war. It's being caused by the high gas prices, which they created by shutting off the spigot, shutting down our gas and oil industry. This whole crisis that they're creating is not a naturally occurring crisis. It's being created by them. And people are seeing this, and they're finally waking up to the things that I have been saying for 30 years. Now it's right in their face. But now we are people in the New World Order. We are in it. This is not something that's futuristic. They created the New World Order in 2021. We are now in it, and they are just further advancing it. And these families.
Before we could have even made an argument that post the cooties pandemic, we were already in it. But that to me was the delineating point where we were like, all right, we're here. Like all of our public servants in the United States, they take a sacred oath before God and their countrymen to protect our constitutional rights. The Declaration of Independence says that government is constructed with the consent of the government. The Declaration of Independence says that government is created with the consent of the governed. And why is government created? To secure our rights. And you witness up and down, from the police to the president, and every single person in between, them violate their oath and prove that we don't have rights, we have privileges. So we're literally living in the New World Order right now. And then we got the future too, right? You've got, I can't believe I'm talking about this as a future, but we've got Clinton on some of the news channels today. People are rumbling about, hey, Hillary might run for 2024, right? Then you've got the transhumanism. Then you've got the Neuralink from Elon Musk. You got CRISPR. You got all this neo-eugenic stuff. Well, what does the future look like if we're living in this? Because Fritz, honestly, you've made predictions that have come true, including some of the things that we've been talking about here. But if you would have told me, and you did, and I still didn't believe it. You told me all this was coming, and I still didn't think it would be right here. So we're right here. So we've got 2024 around the corner, Clinton, transhumanism, this Neuralink, Elon Musk is now the savior. He's the cool guy, the guy that wants to put a microchip in your brain, by the way. We got CRISPR, where they can select and edit DNA. We got eugenics. What does the future look like, Fritz? Because you've been right so many countless times before.
Well, one major thing is following the Georgia Guidestones, which is the Georgia Guidestones says the world population 500 million. Did you see that recent thing where the CEO of Pfizer is addressing the World Economic Forum? Did you see that clip? Okay, Pfizer created the jab, right? And the CEO of Pfizer, this last meeting, World Economic Forum, he's up there and he says, we were successful. We have successfully cut the world's population in half. Now, what does he mean by that? Obviously, half of the world's population hasn't died at this moment. So he must be expecting a lot of people to soon die. And why would he be taking credit for that? And he got an applause. So depopulation is a big part of it. And from a whole number of different sources. And people need to realize that I brought people out of the Illuminati. I rubbed shoulders with a lot of Illuminati members. This is something that I know just like I know my own mother or something. This isn't something that's fiction. It's something that I have lived, and I know these people, have met these people, have shaken their hands, have seen where they live. You know, people have escaped from like this one lady. She was to have been a human sacrifice in Illuminati ritual and escaped and came and talked to me about. These are the kind of things. Day in, day out, I lived for years. I know this stuff. It's for real, and now it's in our face, and hopefully people will quit being in denial that there's some really ugly people that are running this world, and eventually, the Illuminati kingpins told me eventually, after world government, after everything, they're going to hand over the world to the aliens.
Well, that's a perfect segue because I'll just set you up with a nice alley-oop right now. So that's one of the questions that I have for you here on this list is the UAPs. They've rebranded UFOs as unidentified aerial phenomena. And now you think it would be more breaking news, but we've seen it on Fox and CNN, all, owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, the Illuminati companies. And they've been saying, and the US government itself has admitted, yes, we were tracking these UAPs. So I never in my life, Fritz, thought half the stuff that's been going on right now is going on, let alone the government admitting that there's UFOs and now they've been rebranded as UAPs. So if you could talk about that, that's one of my questions too.
Whoa, that's a topic for several books. But there's been a close connection with generational Satanism and aliens. There's been a close connection between the technology that's being used in the 20th century and aliens. And under close scrutiny, I believe that one can come to the same conclusion as I, that these aliens are fallen angels and demons. We're not looking at benevolent races, but we're looking at something that's wanting to destroy God's creation. And that's what this agenda is all about. They're destroying everything that functions and is good. Look around us. Everything in this country that works good is being destroyed.
Yeah, not only destroyed, but people don't even remember the reason we have this country. Like they don't realize that this country is based on our rights. They have. I mean, I'll go up to not only government officials but random police officers, and I'll say, hey, how seriously? Hey, how are you? Right? I won't go up and start badgering. Hey, how are you? Hey, how seriously do you take your oath to the Constitution? Well, very serious. Of course I take it very seriously. What's the Third Amendment? What's the Seventh Amendment? Well, they don't know. These people are so brainwashed by the modern society that they don't even know the thing that they took an oath to. And it's really unfortunate to see, and I'm not a left-wing or right-wing guy, but the U.S. has been pushed steadily left, right? And whenever you're pushing further left, it means more government, more totalitarian control. I'm always on the side of less government and more freedom. Again, as I'll just reiterate, in the Declaration of Independence says that this government we set up was to secure our rights. That's the reason we're making this government, because the king's a tyrant. He wants to tax us. He wants to do all this terrible stuff. He thinks he can run us, tell us who can make a newspaper, who can be a blacksmith, who can be a cooper. No, we're free. And so we're going to create a government based on our freedom. Meanwhile, we've come so far from that, Fritz. And you were talking about, the devil wanted to crucify Jesus. And that is a symbolic, that's more than a symbolic, that's not only a symbolic, but that's a literal sacrifice. And something you've spoken on before, too, is these actual human sacrifices that the Illuminati do. Why are they doing these sacrifices? Where are they doing these sacrifices? And what do they think that they're gaining from this?
Oh, wow. I wrote a whole book about ritual sites. There's ritual sites all over this country. I exposed some of their high-level ritual sites, which played a role in the Dutroux affair, which almost brought the Belgian government down. So that's a vast subject in itself. Somebody recently told me, it was today actually, they told me they were listening to a clip where I talked about the Mother of Darkness castle over near Munro, Belgium. That's one place that they did human sacrifices. They had to quit using that as the headquarters of the Mothers of Darkness after I exposed it. So they've had to actually leave some of their spots that I exposed. This happens to be my little 2-year-old. You want to come on and be on camera?
Let's show the world the newest revolutionary, yeah, evolutionary, yeah.
Our next generation. Lost my train of thought there, but
yeah. And, well,
there's
I was talking. Sorry.
There's a lot of ritual sites. I exposed some of them around Bend, Oregon. Bend, Oregon is Illuminati capital for the Oregon area, and that's a whole topic for another one of my books. Okay, so what was the other part of your question?
Yeah, and well, that was. What do you think that these people think that they're gaining from this, from doing these sacrifices?
Well, there's a whole number of reasons behind it. It plays a role in mind control because they use trauma-based mind control on their own children, their own membership, and they have been for many generations. So it plays a role in mind control. It also solidifies everybody in the cult because they're all criminals. It's like if you join a gang, like if you're in a gang in LA and you're going to be initiated, what they do, they'll say to this 13-year-old, okay, you want to join the gang? You go out. Here's a pistol. You go out and you shoot that old grandmother, okay? And then that 13-year-old who doesn't even know this old grandmother, they'll go over and shoot that grandmother and be initiated. So it's a common criminal bond. You know, you've sacrificed somebody. Well, murder, there's no statute of limitations on murder. So now you're part of a criminal entity. There's also when they sacrifice somebody, and I had the privilege of being the first to expose this back in 1991 time period, is the adrenochrome. I've been amazed that now everybody knows about adrenochrome.
It's so funny that you just said that, because I just wrote that down because Boston Metal just told me to ask you what about adrenochrome. So I mean the synchronicity could not be better today.
Yeah, so they harvest this adrenochrome, which is very powerful, and it's been on the black market for years, but nobody even had heard about it unless you were insider. And then I exposed it around 1991, circa that time period, and now everybody knows about it, and everybody knows that it's one of the major industries that the Illuminati have. That's that revolves around sacrificing people. You get this natural adrenaline rush from drinking the blood of someone who has their blood taken from them while they're in this high. Well, you can imagine what you think if somebody's getting ready to pledge an anathema into you and sacrifice you, you know. And the timing to put the hypodermic needle in to pull out the adrenochrome has to be split second timing. But, you know, they've got a lot of experience.
Yeah, so I got a question here from Titus Frost. Everyone go check out Titus Frost. He wanted me to ask about Israeli cyber infiltration into critical infrastructure and automated food processing plants, oil pipelines, and military equipment. Do you have any thoughts about that? Do you even know what he's talking about? I know that, you know, obviously we share a lot of intel with Israel, and they're part of the Five Eyes too. So, do you have any thoughts about Israeli cyber infiltration into critical infrastructure?
Yeah, they have extensive, because everybody who is a Jew is automatically a dual citizen with Israel. And there's a lot of Jews that are loyal to Israel, and their intelligence agencies are really good at infiltrating. And the United States doesn't guard itself against Israel. So we just like an open source book for them. So yeah, across the board, they have a lot of cyber abilities. Russia just yesterday did a cyber attack against Lithuania and actually had the gall to say, look what we did. We did a cyber attack against Lithuania. Israel has actually done cyber attacks, like they did a cyber attack against the Iranian nuclear program, remember? And then everybody was saying, well, this was Israel that did it. And Israel denied it for years. And then they finally admitted, yes, they did it. So yeah, Israel's got a lot of ability that way. And Israel considered themselves an ally of Putin. And their government's been underwriting air flights from Israel to Russia after Putin invaded Ukraine. The insurance companies wouldn't insure planes to fly into Russia, so the Israeli government's been insuring them, and they won't criticize Putin for what he's done. So a lot of people look at Israel as America's ally, and since their creation, we've basically given them a blank check for whatever they want. We've given them billions of dollars and underwrote their country. And so it's understandable why Americans would think that Israel is our ally. But I think Israel is for themselves. And if it just happens that America is in step with them, fine. But if America is not in step with them, they'll knock us down and walk over us. So we haven't really built anything. We've been the sugar daddy, but I don't think that there's that much respect built there. You can see, I mean, they're not willing to say that Putin's done anything wrong in this Ukrainian thing. And I know some people see that they see Putin as a knight on a white horse. But this thing is a disaster, people. This is not what's happening over there in Ukraine is not of benefit to the world. And this is an unmitigated disaster. And you're going to continue seeing this disaster domino throughout the world. Starvation, gas prices. I saw recently that Germany's gas prices, which were $9 a gallon, they're saying that their gas prices are going to triple. This is insanity. This is not. Pardon me?
It's sad because, I mean, even before the cooties pandemic, people were living paycheck to paycheck, and then they closed down people's businesses. They arrested people for going to church. They arrested people at funerals. And now the price of everything is going up because of inflation, the Federal Reserve mainly, but Joe Biden. I mean, it's just terrible to see. I mean, I've traveled this country a bit, and most of the small downtowns, they're obliterated. They're non-existent. Most of them weren't even in place before the cooties. And so it's just crazy. If you guys have any questions for Fritz, get them in now. Fritz is a busy guy, and let me tell you, Fritz is somebody that I can't be thankful enough of him even giving us this time. And so get your questions in here now, because I want Fritz to enjoy himself a little bit too and relax. And honestly, Fritz Springmeier is the legend. Pentrax.com, Pentrax.com. It's in the description, right? So if you guys got your questions lined up, I got a couple more here. And one day I would love to have a complete talk where we just talk about mind control slaves and trauma-based events, and not just on the individual, but on the whole level. We're gonna have to save that for another one. But I wanted you talked also about Manly P. Hall, the secret teaching of all ages. And I find that book incredibly fascinating. It's basically an encyclopedic look at the occult. It's pretty interesting, especially when I was a newbie. I got to go back and read that book. But they also talk about gematria or gematria. And if anybody's not familiar with that concept out there, it's basically assigning numbers to letters in certain codes. What's your take on gematria? Do you think that's something that they practice? Is that something that's still going on?
The Vilna Gaon, who was a Kabbalistic genius, he used gematria, and he was a number of centuries ago. And it's absolutely incredible that using gematria and the Kabbalah, I call him a Kabbalistic prophet, and he said that in these end times that we were doing, that the world would be run by artificial intelligence. He was actually predicting a computer, and he said that there was two wisdoms. There was the wisdom that came from above, and then there was the wisdom that came from below, which was technology. And the way he described technology back then is what we're into. And he even predicted the generations that we're going through now. Pretty amazing. But yeah, they use gematria. There's even some Christians that use gematria. I don't use it. But, a lot of people do.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Zach from Gematria Effect News. I met him recently, and I'll kind of tie this into it's not really a question, but kind of a point too. I've been meeting with a lot of different people in the truth community, interviewing them, and he specializes in Gematria, and apparently he breaks down some of the symbolism that they're using, the Jesuits there, and also has been able to successfully predict some sports events and win some people some money based on Gematria. So everyone go check him out. And that's a thing that I love about Fritz. You could just throw any question at him, and he has knowledge on pretty much anything that you can think of. And also, I got a question here about. Oh, and if I could just bring this to your attention, if you have a chance, Fritz, and if you could tell people from now on, we're asking everybody. We got a whole bunch of different people coming September 11th. The 21st anniversary of September 11th will be at Ground Zero, New York City. And we're calling all truthers and all channels to non-violently get together, tell their audience, hey, let's get together, let's show up on this event, and let's go out there and be more than digital warriors. So if you're interested, Fritz, I'd love to have you there. I'd love to have you speak about that. And hopefully we can probably do like a GoFundMe to finance your way over there, take some time off of whatever you have to do over there. And if you could also speak about that, tell people to, of course, non-violently join. Got another couple questions here, and I'll open up for the chat. We got one from Rogier Hop in the Netherlands, and he wanted to ask just a generic question about what do you think about the Netherlands? What I'll say, the royal family of the Netherlands were vitally involved with the Bilderberg Group, the creation. You also have Mark Rutte, who probably did some disgusting things with children. You got the farmers' strikes going out there, and you got a whole bunch of stuff going out there. So what's your take, just general question about the Netherlands?
Yeah, the Queen is part of the Illuminati. The Dutch royalty are dirty, and there's a Dutch contingent in the head of the Illuminati right now is from Belgium, but he's got Belgium and the Netherlands are very closely connected, and the Belgium's divided up in two linguistic groups. So the Van Dyne family is one of the, and it was also Van der Dyne. It was one of the old noble families that survived. And they are also related to the Merovingians. They have intermarried in with the Merovingians, and the Van Dyne families also married into help me out here. I'm spacing off the man who started the Bavarian Illuminati.
Adam Weishaupt, the
Adam Weishaupt. We married into Adam Weishaupt bloodline, and they're Dutch. So there is a Dutch contingent, and the EU is basically an Illuminati creation, and the people that are running the EU are Illuminati, and there are a lot of things that the EU did that were just a cult, and where they put a lot of the headquarters of the EU in Brussels is because Brussels is Belgium is the heart of the Illuminati, and yeah, so the Dutch are right in. Unfortunately, the people running the Netherlands are the power structure is right in there. I'm not lambasting the Dutch people because I've been in the Netherlands and I love the Dutch people, but unfortunately these countries have been hijacked and controlled.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And just to back up what you said, the European Union was created by the Bilderberg Group. Valerie D'Estaing, one of the influential people in that, bragged that it was created at the Bilderberg Group. So I got one or two more here. Well, I'll get your point on two more here. If anybody has an awesome enough question, I want to give Fritz some time. I'll ask it. But two more things I wanted to ask about. We have COINTELPRO. Anybody that doesn't know, COINTELPRO is counterintelligence program. Now, I don't like to talk negatively about other people, but it is something that we have to address. I'm not going to name names or anything like that unless Fritz wants to do that, and that's fine too. And I think it is important to name the people that are actively deceiving us. But we've seen in the last, 5-10 years, kind of the truth movement going into different places, right? And what is the state of COINTELPRO now? And do you think that there's certain people that are like just definitely COINTELPRO? And what's your take on that?
Well, I know what happened with myself, okay? I started publicly exposing the cabal, or call them Illuminati or whatever. I started publicly exposing them in 1990. I got no publicity. I did things that you would have thought would have gotten publicity. You know, I wrote Bloodlines of the Illuminati and things like this. No publicity. I went to conferences. Other people that weren't exposing as much as me, they would be given negative publicity. The cameras would come in, and you know, and to someone who's not alert, they would say, well, yeah, but the news media is saying negative things about them. Yeah, but they were being built up. And with me, they just totally ignored me. So these people that they're paying attention to, a lot of them are COINTELPRO. And, you know, unfortunately, there's probably more dirty people out there on our side than there are legitimate. And that's just the way it is. But I don't like to criticize or expose because I don't like infighting. And some of these people are doing our side probably more good than a lot of people that might be legitimate. So fine, let them. It's just like, I'll give an example.
I agree with that.
The Nazis tried to infiltrate spies into Great Britain. Essentially, 100% of those spies were discovered and turned. If they didn't turn and become turncoats to work for the British, they were eliminated and somebody replaced them. So 100% of the German spy network was turned and was dirty. There was one exception, but that's a rare unknown exception. There was a Welsh patriot who managed to slip the British intelligence and work for them. But basically, the whole Nazi spy network was compromised. Well, we're working with the same kind of situation. A lot of the people out there are compromised. For the first 5-10 years that I was out there, most of the people that were supposed to be against the New World Order were just lambasting me, saying lies about me, doing all kinds of stabbing me in the back. I didn't have hardly anyone out there helping me.
And that's the unfortunate thing, Fritz, is because some of these people, I won't name names because I've always for the longest time said the same thing, because you know what, as long as someone's out there, we all have problems, we all have our shortcomings, our sins, right? But I always believe as long as somebody is out there spreading the word, even if they might be somewhat mistaken or something like that, as long as I don't have any overwhelming evidence that that person is doing something negative, nefarious, or harmful, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But also, I've noticed too, like you're talking about, people like there's certain truthers, I won't say their names, but they've gotten 160 something bucks in 3 years, but they're not, doing massive nonviolent protests, right? They're not helping the legends like FRITZ SPRINGMEIER, right? They're not doing anything with that money. They're just making money off of that, right? And then you got these people aren't even truthers, but you got people like, Joe Rogan. I believe personally that they realized around the era of Trump, before Trump, that the mainstream media had failed, so they would create their own replacement, the new media. So don't worry about CNN. We're losing the ratings there, but don't worry, we got Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's cool, right? But except he censors people like Adam Kokesh. He's supposed to be censored, but he censors people himself. And don't worry, we got these new heroes for you. We got Elon Musk. He's cool because he's looking at me smoking weed. You know what I'm saying? He's cool, man. He's down to earth. And he wants to put a chip in your brain, okay? So let me just get one final question here, Fritz, for you. Today, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But yet we haven't seen, we've got Epstein, whatever the hell happened to him, he definitely didn't kill himself. We have Ghislaine, supposedly in jail, although we've never seen any photographic evidence of that. She's supposedly going to be spending 20 years. We don't have anybody arrested or supposed to be arrested on the list of people that would abuse children, we'll say it that way, because they had a client list of people that would abuse children, right? So how come those people haven't been taken care of? And yet we're extraditing Julian Assange for exposing war crimes, but we can't extradite Prince Andrew for abusing kids. So do you think, did someone else pick up on the way off? What, if any, comments do you have to say about the whole Ghislaine Epstein ring and their connections? When will they live on?
The whole system up there is dirty. It's totally dirty, and they're all compromised. And I could talk a lot about that. I was saying that back in 1990, but at that time it was too overwhelming for people to believe. And then I had a friend who was an ex-cop, Kevin Schmidt, and what happened with him is he lived in Hawaii, and he was a student of my material, and one day he got a call, and this young man said, and I can't remember his age, maybe around 19, he says, "My father's the head Freemason in Hawaii, and I hate him, and I know that you don't like the Freemasons, and he's gone, and I can get you into his library if you want, and you can look at his files." Well, my friend, who's an ex-cop, who's a patriot, a Christian patriot, and he went for it. He went into the guys, and he saw on the walls these file cabinets, and he started pulling them out, and in those file cabinets, file cabinet after file cabinet, was the evidence for everybody in Hawaii who was anybody of power, the actual evidence to send those people to prison. Okay, everyone in power was being blackmailed. Now you think of Biden, our president. How much blackmail material do you think they have on that guy, right? Or Hunter Biden? These people that are up there at the top, they are all controlled because the evidence is there to send them to prison. They're all reprobates. These are nasty people, and that's what we're dealing with. There's nobody in the system up there that's legitimate that can help us, and that's why the Supreme Court makes, it's against the law to try to intimidate a Supreme Court justice, but they're doing it, and nobody's doing anything about it. We've lost this country. We had the pretensions of being United States of America, a constitutional republic 30 years ago. It was the facade, but now you don't even have the facade. You don't even have the myth going. It's just right there in your face. that we've lost our country.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I mean, I've done this before. I've went through the Bill of Rights. The reason why these freedoms that are unalienable from God, the reason we created government is to secure these unalienable rights. You go through a list of the Bill of Rights when you got some free time, guys out there, you'll see that every single one of them is gone. Every single one of them is gone. So yeah, it's really a shame. It's really a shame. I'm hopeful that we can turn this thing around, but it's going to take a lot of people being nonviolent, getting out in the streets, sharing videos like this, sharing Fritz's work. So and people are asking in the chat how they can get in contact with me. I just want to say first and foremost, before we wrap this up, thank you to Auditing America for allowing us to have this platform so that Fritz can get his word out. You guys can find Auditing America. It's $ Auditing America News on Cash App, $ Auditing America News on Cash App. We also have a Facebook group, Auditing America, and on Instagram, Auditing America. I can be reached. I have a YouTube channel myself. It's FakeMicRealNews. So go check me out right here. I'm on FakeMicRealNews on Instagram, $ FakeMicRealNews on Cash App, FakeMicRealNews.com, FakeMicRealNews on Twitter. You just type in FakeMicRealNews and you're going to find me. If you want to email me, you can email me FakeMicRealNews@gmail.com. Now I'm going to put on screen here pen tracks, and I'll message you. Well, if you could just hang around, if you have time, if you want to hang around for 1 minute, because I would like to talk to you about this. We're going to update pen tracks for Fritz, but I'm going to put pen tracks up on screen. It's also in the description, and this is the way that you help Fritz Springmeier out. Fritz Springmeier is a legend. He is somebody that has been exposing this stuff for a very long time. He never got the credit he's been due, and he's been given the short end of the stick because he had the confidence, the courage, and the gonads to go against the system. So this is somebody that we should be helping out. So you should see here right on screen and in the description, pentracks.com, right? And you can see here, there's a link for donations, and then these are the books. So you can buy these books right here and help Fritz out, right? And these will go, and the bare minimum you could do is share this video, share the website, and purchase the books. I really want you to purchase these books, not only so you have a greater idea of what's going on, because it's impossible for me to condense all the information that Fritz has worked on for decades into one little video here. I mean, we just skimmed the surface today. So please go purchase Fritz's books. They're pentracks.com. That's pentracks.com, pentracks.com. Share this video. Go to pentracks.com. Let's put it up on screen one more time too. Links in the description. And when you send a donation, let them know Auditing America, Fake Mike sent you. So we know that you're having an effect. So Fritz, any other final words that you want to give to people in the chat here, and any other things that you want to talk about before we wrap this up? And if you could just hang around for a minute or two, because I want to chat with you briefly after we wrap this up.
Okay, so first I want to give people a contact address. My email address is springmeiermessages@hotmail.com. Springmeier is spelled lowercase s, spring as the season, then MEIER, and then messages. Springmeier messages, all one word, @hotmail.com. And it maybe you can put that up for people too. Now just understand, people, I am short. I'm short on time, and don't take it personally if you don't get the attention that you would like. A lot of people don't get the attention that they would like from me. Will's had to be patient for me to get me back on. And as a last word, you know, Will, I've been talking the negatives of things, but there's a lot of positives too. And I don't want people just to think that all that there is out there is negative. One thing I want to remind people is evil contains the seeds of its own destruction. Look at what happened to Hitler. Putin is going to destroy himself. You know, the Chinese, the Red Chinese, they may destroy themselves. Evil contains the seed of its own destruction. And you look at these people that have weird sexual agendas. Well, they're not having children. You know, they're not carrying on to the next generations. So just remember that. That's there's many other things I could say to to give us something positive to think of, but I'm just going to hammer that one point. Evil contains the seed of its own destruction, and God is still on the throne. Don't worry. God will bring something good out of everything. And it says all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. That's Romans 8:28. So when things are going bad, I just hang on to God and love him even more. And if things are going bad in your life, I recommend that you continue to love God like Job did. And in some way, at some point, God will flip those things for good. And you may say, I don't know how he's going to do that. There were a lot of bad things that happened to me. And I didn't know how God was going to flip them to good, but he eventually did. And so I praise God.
Yeah, and Fritz is really living up to the best of the Bible. Ephesians 5:11 says, "Take no part in acts of darkness, rather work tirelessly to expose them." And Fritz has made his life to do that. So Fritz, thank you so much. Everyone go to pentracks.com, Pentracks, pentracks.com, pentracks.com. The link is in the description. Share this video. Thank you so much, Fritz. And Fritz, he's never giving up. He just is out here doing this. Please share the video. I mean, Fritz, I'm not going to tell you some of the stuff behind the scenes, and we could talk about that. Fritz has talked about in other interviews, but he's been given the shit end of the stick, and he still keeps fighting. So share this video, help Fritz get his word out, and thank you so much, Fritz. God bless everybody.